Today on Investigate TV Plus, with their future in jeopardy, more older Americans are being driven out of retirement.
We examine why seniors are back on the job hunt and explore one of the resources available to match them with the best opportunity. Plus,
I thought it was a safe platform for children to use.
Social media being used to sell deadly drugs.
He took the pill, and then what happened afterwards? He stopped breathing.
A family shares how fentanyl made its way into their home and into the hands of their 15-year-old, and how you can talk to your teen about drugs.
plus, a living museum honors a community that grew through the spirit and determination of former slaves.
There's still work to be done. There's still work to be done.
But there's more than preservation happening on this one-of-a-kind farm.
In-depth stories that inform and inspire. You're watching Investigate TV Plus.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Tisha Powell.
And I'm Lee Zurich. As pandemic fears fade, but the sting of inflation continues, more and more retired Americans are choosing to rejoin the workforce.
It's a trend called unretirement, and following a COVID-era dip, it's once again gaining traction in today's labor market.
According to a Go Banking Rate survey, more than half of Americans plan to keep working in their retirement, but it's not always an easy transition.
Heather Graff shares the story of one man working to break through the barriers and the resources available to those looking to get back to work.
We hope you have a pleasant day in Northeast Pennsylvania.
There's an American coming in at 5:51.
Michael O'Brien knows the flight schedule at Wilkes-Barre-Scranton International Airport like the back of his hand.
How are we doing, folks?
Wonderful, thanks. How are you today?
Oh, not bad for a guy my age.
At 76 years young, that's his job. O'Brien is an ambassador at the airport here in Pennsylvania. He spends a big part of his day greeting travelers as they come and go.
Your ride should be outside the door here.
But this isn't his first job.
As I used to say, I've done everything except peddle papers or pump gas.
In 2009, O'Brien retired from his print and mail position at MetLife.
Have a good day.
But now, more than a decade later, he's starting a new chapter.
So why ultimately did you decide the time was right for you to unretire?
Essentially, so I could eat and keep a roof over my head.
While unretirement slowed during the pandemic, experts say factors like inflation are forcing older Americans back into the workforce. In fact, the Bureau of Labor Statistics reports the only age group whose labor participation is projected to grow this decade is those 75 plus.
I don't think I had saved enough money, and things were definitely getting more expensive.
A 2022 AARP survey found that 55% of retirees who work said financial need is the main reason.
They're coming back because of day-to-day expenses are going up. They can't save as much for retirement, and so they want to make sure that they shore up those retirement savings.
And it's more than just that, says Heather Tinsley Fix, who is the AARP's senior advisor for employer engagement.
We are living longer, we're staying healthier for longer, and this is reflected in sort of the second reason people cite as wanting to return to work is things like wanting to stay mentally active, enjoying work, and feeling like they still have something to contribute.
She says research shows older workers have higher levels of engagement and motivation. But according to a recent Paychex survey, 62% of hiring managers are skeptical about employing retirees.
Ironically, other research shows that once those folks are hired, hiring managers rate them just as well or better than other younger folks they've hired. So there's really kind of a perception issue.
Career site Zippia reports that older workers are offered jobs 40% less frequently than younger candidates with similar skills. And 60% of older employees have seen or experienced workplace age discrimination.
There's still a lot of work to do to dismantle these ideas that older workers have some level of limitation.
So O'Brien says it was life-changing when he stumbled across a resource called the Senior Community Service Employment Program.
How you doing?
It was a chance encounter at a job fair, and it's how he ended up here. The federally funded job training program provides valuable work experience and grant-sponsored income to adults nationwide aged 55 and older.
We try to project a positive image, not only for the airport, but for the entire area.
Eligible participants are then matched with part-time training positions at public facilities and nonprofits.
We really work to find out what a person wants to do, what kind of work is going to be meaningful for them, and then we align that with the necessary skills, the job skills that a person's going to need to succeed and thrive in that field, in that job.
The National Council on Aging says the program serves about 40,000 people annually and is meant to be a stepping stone back into employment.
How grateful are you that program exists?
More grateful than you could imagine.
Older workers like O'Brien proving there's value in experience.
I will stay here, God willing, until the 4 years of the program is up.
And age is just a number.
I'll be almost 80 years old, so I may decide to run for president. Have a great day. Stay out of trouble, everybody.
While it's not the first time this has happened, the future of the Senior Community Service Employment Program is caught in a political tug-of-war.
The House Committee on Appropriations has proposed a bill to eliminate its funding, while the Senate is pushing for it to remain. The program would not be impacted before July of 2024.
For more information on eligibility requirements, visit the National Council on Aging's website.
Long-haul flights can take a toll. The medical mythbuster breaks down who's at an increased risk of developing a life-threatening condition while up in the sky.
But first, a deadly dose delivered while parents slept, and they claim their son found the dealer through social media.
That is your platform. That is your responsibility. And they need to own up.
We uncover what's being done to keep more kids safe from counterfeit prescription pills and give you the resources to help talk to your teen about drug use. A Pew Research Center study found in 2022 roughly 6 in 10 kids between 13 and 17 reported using Snapchat.
But the platform faces scrutiny as a lawsuit claims it's a conduit for drug dealers to reach kids.
Reporter Angie Racono sits down with a family in Missouri who blames Snapchat for the death of their son.
Ground control to Major Tom.
Cruz, we miss you so much, man. We're gonna be together again someday.
15-year-old Cruz Burris died from a fentanyl poisoning in January of 2023.
I cry inside on a daily basis.
His parents are crushed by his death. They miss everything about their son.
Cruz was incredibly vivid. He was a huge personality. He just was.
The Burris family claims Cruz was enticed by a post on Snapchat. A dealer delivered the pill to their home while the parents slept. Cruz thought it was Percocet. Little did he know it was laced with fentanyl. Cruz took the pill while he was FaceTiming with friends.
Watch me. He took the pill. And then what happened afterwards? He stopped breathing.
Yeah.
Then his heart stopped. And then he died. He died.
The friends texted Cruz's sister, but she was asleep, and the family found him the next morning, and it was too late.
I immediately pulled him down and did CPR on my dead son.
The family blames the dealer and are hopeful for criminal charges as investigators trace social media and phones. They have harsh words for Snapchat.
You know who is online. That is your platform. That is your responsibility. And they need to own up to what is happening on their platform.
The Burrises are among 27 families suing Snapchat, arguing the social media giant helps dealers connect with children and teenagers. Even though Snapchat is not the most popular social media app among teens, it places fourth, it facilitates the overwhelming majority of lethal counterfeit prescription drug sales involving social media and children, teens, and young adults. The lawsuit points to disappearing messages and claims that makes it ideal for criminals, and claims Snapchat knows or should know that.
They are not willing to implement any safety design features that will reduce engagement with their products and advertising revenue they receive. That is why we have this problem. You don't need disappearing messages.
So you believe the way Snapchat works, it makes it particularly appealing to drug dealers?
Not only do I believe it, the evidence shows it.
We contacted Snapchat. A spokesperson sent this response. At Snap, we are working hard to stop dealers from abusing our platform. We do this by employing certain technologies, working closely with law enforcement, collaborating with other technology companies, and by having a zero-tolerance policy where we shut off the infringer's account. We checked to see if the accused drug dealer in Cruz's case was still on the platform. We couldn't find him. But the attorney representing dozens of families says he's aware of one case where a young person died from fentanyl poisoning. The dealer remained on Snapchat, and another young person died a year later.
I thought it was a safe platform for children to use.
The Burris family says they never considered Snapchat dangerous until their son died. They joined the lawsuit hoping for accountability and speaking out to warn other parents.
I just can't wait to see you again. I love you. So, Cruz, my son.
The latest federal data shows more than 200 people die every day from fentanyl. 75,000 people died in 2022. Many are unintentional, like Cruz. In Kansas City, I'm Angie Racono.
Health officials in Arizona say the drug is also seeping into their schools.
In order to protect students, a district in Tucson has put Narcan throughout all of its K-12 schools.
This year, we're installing these big red boxes, usually where everybody can see it.
Narcan kits are being added to common areas after an increase in overdoses on campus. Since 2019, school health officials say Narcan has had to be administered 7 times on campus. 4 of those overdoses were in 2023 alone. The district has also created an addiction reduction task force to try to help students, but advocates stress parents should talk to their kids.
Getting parents to have the conversation with their children is absolutely critical, because I don't think the parents fully understand what their children are being exposed to every single day.
The U.S. Department of Health says a small conversation with your teen can make a big impression. Just search for the Talk, They Hear You campaign. You can find information about having age-appropriate conversations or tips to tell if your kid is using drugs. The Drug Enforcement Administration also breaks down the common codes being used between drug dealers and teens on social media. You can see which emojis represent fake prescription pills and the signals dealers use to advertise.
Their crops weren't just for selling, but a means of survival. We'll share the history of how dozens of freed slaves made a life for themselves after the Civil War.
What they did here, I think, is a remarkable story.
Plus, meet the farmer who's helping honor their legacy.
And we're asking the medical mythbuster if it's safe to fly with a blood clot and what you can do to decrease your risk of developing one while on a long trip. Traveling long distances can put a strain on your body.
According to the American Heart Association, traveling longer than 8 hours, whether by plane, train, or automobile, can increase your risk for blood clots. And if you're on a flight, your risk jumps 3 times higher.
The association says sitting for long periods can slow blood flow, and high altitudes can also activate the body's clotting system. While not all blood clots are deadly, a specific type called a pulmonary embolism can be life-threatening.
In this medical myth-buster, reporter Viv Williams examines the link between air travel and PEs.
The myth is that pulmonary embolisms happen frequently on long-haul flights. The truth is they don't. But because PEs can be life-threatening, you should know your risks, how to prevent them, and the symptoms should one occur.
These events after long-haul travel are very, very infrequent.
Dr. Robert McBain, a Mayo Clinic cardiologist, says a pulmonary embolism happens when a clot called a deep vein thrombosis travels from an extremity, most often your leg, up through the inferior vena cava to your lungs, where it gets stuck in an artery. Small clots may not cause much trouble, but big ones can block blood flow from the right side of the heart, causing symptoms. And in extreme cases, the abrupt onset of right heart failure can cause death.
Most people will survive their pulmonary embolism. A very small percentage will have a fatality. And because there is potential mortality associated with these events, we would want patients to be promptly evaluated so that prompt therapy can be initiated.
Therapy involves short and long-term blood thinners. McBain says there's no way to predict who will have a PE or when one might happen, but you're at increased risk after major surgery, major trauma, if you have cancer, if you have a relative who's had a PE, if you've had a PE in the past, or if you've had a long, prolonged time of immobility, such as in a nursing home. But 1/2 of all cases happen without an explanation. So how can you prevent PEs if you're on a long flight?
For the really high-risk individuals, sometimes we give them a preventative dose of blood thinner therapy.
If you're not at increased risk, McBain recommends you stay hydrated, stand up or walk the aisle every couple of hours, stretch your legs while sitting, and wear compression stockings. With this medical mythbuster, I'm Viv Williams.
Dr. McBain says pulmonary embolisms are as common as heart attacks in this country. An estimated 900,000 PEs happen yearly compared to 800,000 heart attacks. But only 10 to 15% of PE cases result in death. Another tip to help prevent blood clots on long flights, Columbia University recommends traveling with fewer items. If possible, put your stuff in an overhead bin so you can have more leg room to stretch your calves or wiggle your ankles.
Coming up on Investigate TV Plus.
We have collard greens, turnips, mustards, cabbage.
We travel to a century-old farm to see how history is inspiring a new generation. You can watch Investigate TV Plus anytime, streaming online. Get the app for Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and Apple TV. They're free to download. Farming is sewn into U.S. history. It's played a critical role in the development of many communities.
At the end of the Civil War, land was set aside to help freed slaves, a plan that became known as 40 acres and a mule.
The government did not keep that promise following the assassination of President Abraham Lincoln, but more than 24 black families in South Carolina worked together to create their own way of life.
Reporter Darian Henderson introduces us to the farmer and volunteers keeping their story alive.
When you think of farm life, chickens may come to mind.
No Sunday meal was complete without chicken.
Or maybe hogs. And even some mules. Here on Freewood's farm in Socastee, you'll see plenty of animals, but that's not all.
We have collard greens, turnips, mustards, cabbage.
And in the summer,
sweet peas and string beans and watermelons and cantaloupes and cucumbers, squash.
Talk about a healthy harvest with 40 acres to cover.
This row is not bad.
O'Neill Smalls calls on help from volunteers like Craig James.
You have everything you need. You know, you can put a house out here, you have your farm, you have your vegetables and produce.
Together, they make their rounds across the farm.
One more row and then we'll have this completed.
Planting produce and feeding the livestock. Looking at Freewood's farm from afar, it appears to be the standard American farm. However, there's a deeper story sewed into this soil.
Freewoods was a black community. Started right at the end of the Civil War and lasted for that 100 years we're talking about, that first century of freedom.
After a tumultuous 300 years of slavery, Smalls says with nothing but their freedom, black families only asked for one thing: 40 acres and a mule.
They thought they could make it if they could get 40 acres of land. Well, they didn't get it.
Instead, roughly 30 black families put their minds and tools together to create a self-sustained community. You see, farming on this land wasn't just an obligation, it was the only means of survival.
They had to fashion a new life for themselves. They grew almost everything they ate. In addition to talking about what happened on the farm, we have to talk about what happened in the community.
After hours of working tirelessly in the field, these black farmers built their own churches and schoolhouses that still stand today. To earn money, the farmers grew cash crops like tobacco and cotton. This self-supported way of living carried on from 1865 to 1900, spanning 35 years.
What they did here, I think, is a remarkable story.
In fact, it's a tale Smalls is vowing to never let die, which shows in what we see here today. Crops constantly growing, chickens producing eggs daily, and mules to haul it all away. It's this preservation of history that's gotten black South Carolinians like James grabbing the seed bags to lend a helping hand.
And that's how you keep something like this alive. You know, you have a few people that come on and volunteer, but you want to get the community more involved in something like this.
Put some in the trough down there.
Today, Freewood's Farm Museum is also the only known black farmers museum in the country. Now, centuries later, several things have changed, but when it comes to work in the field,
the same old way. We do it the way they did it. There's still work to be done. There's still work to be done.
I'm glad to see them still working that land, preserving history and telling their story.
People need to know this kind of stuff, and it's keeping history alive, which is important for all of us.
Indeed.
Yes. All right, that's it for us on Investigate TV Plus. I'm Lee Zurich.
And I'm T. Chappelle. Thanks for watching.
On the next Investigate TV Plus,
it impacts everybody.
Suicide remains one of the leading causes of death in the United States. We take you inside one family's fight for prevention and how you can play a part.